Hello, this is another review of JLCPCB products. This is a delayed Christmas gift I just received today. A few assembled PCBs that I ordered. We're just going to open it up and see what it looks like. It's not going to be as long as the previous videos, just a review of the product. So these are 10 stepper motor driver boards that I ordered. They arrived packaged like this. There is a order number of some sort, something in Chinese, I guess, quality 10, blah blah blah. Let's see how to open it up. I have an X-Acto knife here to help with this excessive packaging, because sometimes they go overboard packing these things. Okay, so nicely wrapped in bubble wrap, and ta-da! This is, oh, it's all in one tape kind of affair. Don't know if you can see it. Whee! Let me fold it here in the middle so you can see better. Well, so these are the driver boards I ordered. They look really nice. Everything is, well, it looks better than I expected. I'll just add some more lights so we can see better. Hopefully this will be a little bit. Yeah, the only thing I would say is the green mask looks a little dull, but it's not a beauty contest. So other than that, the placement of components looks excellent. We will examine it under a microscope in a moment. And here they are, 10 boards. Everything is soldered that I wanted, except the connector on the top, because they can only solder surface mount components. And yeah, this is a QFN package. Looks like it's been placed very well. Of course, I need to do electrical test to verify, but yeah, on the first glance, it looks excellent. And this whole package of 10 boards and parts and everything was about $65, excluding the shipping. So about $6.50 per board, which is not bad for a stepper motor driver. So that's that. That was gift number one. And now the bigger gift is this here big package. So this is my 3D printer controller board. Let's see how I can open it without damaging the PCBs. So this is a bigger board. It's about 14 centimeters by about 10 centimeters size. I don't know how many components it has, maybe about 100 components. And again, neatly packaged in bubble wrap, and looks like each board is kind of packaged individually. And this is what the assembled board looks like. I managed to get all the components in except the connectors, even though they're surface mounts, they don't do connectors. And of course, none of the through-hole connectors are populated. The other thing that I didn't manage to get done was the fuse holders, because they didn't have the package that I'm using. Well, that's that. So there is one, and then we unwrap some more. There's two. Yeah, the LEDs here look very neatly arranged, so everything seems fine. Of course, I will examine it under a microscope. Just give me a second. And then there is three. I don't know what that is. 4. And then there is number 5. So these 5 boards, I think, were $89 or something like that, which was about $19 something per board assembled. And again, that includes the price of the components and everything. Yeah, very nice so far. I'm very happy. And now to the next package. So this is a little panel board that I ordered. It's the first time I order panelized PCBs. I did the panel using a free tool by a person, I don't know, but they did a great job. The tool is from Dirty PCBs. It's a website that also you can use for ordering PCBs. They work great for smaller boards. So they have this tool that you can have a bunch of Gerber files and you can make a panel out of them. And you can order the thing from JLCPCB as if it's one board. And you get great pricing. If it's 10 by 10 centimeters large. So that's what I did. So here is the panelized board. So these are what are known as mouse bites. So this is where the PCB would snap. And I added this kind of rail so I can mount it on my pick and place machine. And everything looks very nicely routed. Some people were complaining that sometimes they don't route the channels, etc. But in this case, everything came as expected. So these are 4, again, a little bit different chip. This is a stepper motor driver using TMC 2660. Then there are 4 of them per panel. So a total of 10 boards means 40 drivers, which was maybe about, I would like to, maybe $28, $30 for the panel. No, I'm lying. It maybe was about $50 or $60 for the panel, and the expensive part, I think $26 is the 10 by 10 PCB, but the expensive part was the gold finish that I have to use because these are PCI Express slots and they need to be with immersion gold finish. So that made the thing a little bit more expensive. But yeah, very nicely done. I can't wait to snap some of these and see how that goes. And we will examine the symbol boards under a microscope next. Hey, welcome back. And this is, as promised, a little examination of the assembled PCBs under a microscope. Well, microscope is a very generous term. This is a glorified webcam and a cheap one at that with just magnification lenses. But here it is. So these are 2 0603 capacitors. This is a current sense resistor. I think it's 1206, another 1206 capacitor over here. This is 0402 capacitor. Looks like it was placed very nicely in the center of the pads. Another 0402 capacitor next to 0603. It looks like everything is placed very neatly. And this is the QFN package. Again, looks like it's placed, the placement is quite correct. There is no bridging. Looks like all the pads have been soldered, except the pads that I have here are the ground connection ones. Let me see if I can point to it. Yeah, this one is a ground connection, and this one is also a ground connection. And it looks like some of the solder was sucked under the chip. But there shouldn't be a problem with the connection. Looks like they're quite all right. and the rest of the components seems okay. So this is a big electrolytic capacitor. Looks like the solder pads are all neat and done. The traces look fine. This is a little bit, I think it's something like SOT23 5-pin. It's 0.65 millimeter pin pitch. So that's been placed nicely, and this is another QFN package over here. This guy, I think it's a 4 millimeter pitch. It's even finer. It's a little I2C EEPROM. I think it's been soldered very nicely. I don't think it's bridging. Yeah, I am very happy with this assembly job. I mean, for the price, it certainly looks very nice, and everything is very neatly assembled. And yeah, kudos for JLCPCB. Hey, and this is the bigger board that I showed you earlier. I want to examine a couple of components under magnification to see the quality of the assembly process. This is a little 3D printer controller project that I am working on. First, we start with the corner of the board with two surface mount buttons. It's one of the weirdest components that they have in the library. Of course, they have capacitors, integrated circuits, but buttons is not what you would expect, but they do have them. And they look relatively neatly placed. This one is just a little bit off, but not bad enough. I think it's quite acceptable. Some resistors, capacitors next to them. Next is a series of resistors, capacitors, and one LED. These are all 06, 03 size. They look, yeah, neatly placed. Yeah, this one is just a little bit off here. This guy, let me get something to point at. Yeah, this guy is slightly crooked, but nothing too bad. I mean, it's still on the pads and soldered nicely. Again, this assembly surface only assembles surface mount components. Everything that is a through hole you need to handle separately. This little diode is super annoying to do by hand, by the way, so thank the JLC for placing it quite dead center. And of course, this is a little SOT23 MOSFET placed very nicely, and there is a series of these. Trying to see what on earth is this. Here's some sort of junk. Okay, that's from the packaging. Yep, so these components look neat. Next we will move to, this is a little SOIC EEPROM. This is nothing too challenging. I will get better lighting on the other side. It looks super dull, but just because there is just no light whatsoever. Let me try the so-called microscope lights. I don't know if it will be better. Yep. So it actually, the positioning of the integrated surface is very good. I cannot complain about that. I apologize, you cannot read what's on the chip. Again, the lighting and this is very challenging to get correctly. Anyhow, the other interesting component, maybe this is a resistor network. This is a 40603 resistors in what looks like, I don't know what size it comes up to be. Again, not terribly bad to solder by hand, but good placement on the pads, and solder is reflowed well on the pads. I think the connections are good. It's another resistor network. More of these LEDs, capacitors. This is an input filter for the end stops. So this is a crystal oscillator. Looks like it's been soldered correctly. And this is the main CPU. It's a QFP 0.5mm pitch. I think the placement is dead center. Yeah, I cannot see anything off. It's much better than what I can do by hand, I can tell you that. When I do it by hand, there is usually one side is slightly crooked. Yep. And these are two 0.65mm TSSOP packages, and yeah, they're placed correctly. Solder reflow is quite good. I don't see any bridging. And as David Jones says, that is all she wrote. There is an array of LEDs. And they slightly crooked this one. The resistors are much worse than the LEDs, by the way, you can see. Yeah, from where I'm looking, they look excellent. Under the microscope, of course, every mistake is magnified. And these are power transistor modules. Looks like they reflowed nicely. Again, more diodes. Etc, etc. So what I couldn't solder, so this is this here guy, you can't quite see it, but it's a micro SD card slot. I wish they could have soldered that, but they just don't offer the component in their service. They have the component in their library, it's just not available for their pick and place service. And also here there was supposed to be a micro USB slot. Again, that was not offered in the library, even though both of these are surface mount parts. One limitation that I hit with the service is in here, in this, between these big pads. Sorry, I moved the wrong direction. Between these big pads, there are 4 of them, right here and right here, was supposed to be a DC buck converter module. And I had all the components placed on the PCB, but I ran into the limitation that the service only allows 10 extended parts. Again, the library of components is divided into standard, or what they call basic and extended parts. And basic parts are, pretty much capacitors, resistors, this kind of things. They have some basic part integrated circuits, but for anything more exotic, like this TTL components here, these were extended parts. The power MOSFETs were extended parts. Actually, all the MOSFETs were extended parts. The crystal was an extended part. So you run into these extended parts, and when you reach 10 of them, that is it. And if I try to incorporate the power DC converter module, I run into this limitation. So I decide to put it on a separate board and solder it by hand with castellated edges. And that is that. That is definitely one very, very unpleasant limitation of this service. You can use it for small project, but anything that gets bigger will quickly reach this extended part limit. I hope they extend it in the future. But other than that, for surface mount assembly, it is an excellent service. And I will use it again. I think for the pricing, the service, if it works for you, it's definitely worth trying. And full disclosure, this video is not sponsored by JLCPCB. I paid for all these things myself, and it's just a review for what I'm receiving. Happy 2020, by the way, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.